Bienvenidos. My name is Ricardo and welcome to my channel. This is my first video in English and I have been thinking about doing this for a really long time. I need English in my workplace and I've always thought this was a good idea to practice more of it and not let it get rusty. I have tried to do this video 3 times now. The first one, I had not spoken in English in so long that I cringe when I heard myself. The second one, the mic wasn't working. And now it's the third one. So I hope everything goes as planned and we can go through this video together. I decided I wanted to talk about weird books because we are entering a weird time of the year, in my opinion. Both personally, like in my personal life, right now things are a little bit weird in a good way. And also it's like the spooky season for a lot of people. Here in Spain it isn't because we don't celebrate Halloween or anything like that. But yeah, the vibes are weird. You start seeing on TV like Halloween movies and things like that. So I thought I would bring you weird books, not scary books, not horror books, just weird. And yeah, if you want to know which books I have read that I consider weird, keep on watching. Like I said in the beginning, these books are not necessarily horror or scary books. A couple of them are not even like creepy at all. They're just unsettling for some reason, or they were unsettling to me. So keep in mind that this is my personal opinion, and maybe you have read some of these books and thought they were like boring or they weren't unsettling or weird at all, but to me they were. First, I'm going to talk about some Spanish books because I think those are the ones that you might have a little bit more trouble finding if you want to read them. But I think you can, except for a couple that I put in this list, I think you can find them all in English. The first one that I want to talk about is Legado de Plumas by Marina Tena Tena. The literal translation to English would be A Legacy of Feathers. And this book, it shocked me. This is one of the creepy books of the list because basically in this book, this is kind of like a fantasy book. We are in a world, in a fantasy world that is ruled by angels. Flesh like angels, like flesh and bone. They're not imaginary mythological beings. And the first thing is this mother who has twins and she cannot take care of them. So she turns them to the angels so the angels take care of them and provide for them. But there's one detail in this world that is the humans cannot see angels. If they see an angel, if they look at an angel, they die. So this mother, to protect her kids, she takes out the kids' eyes so they are blind. And during the entire book, we are following the experience of two blind twins describing everything, going through everything, and trying to survive their new life. This book was really interesting. It's a very short book. I'm surprised if it reaches like 100 pages. It's a novella more than a book. And the vibe of the book was just so creepy. And to me, what was weird about the book, apart from the plot, is something that I had never heard before, is the fact that you are following these two blind characters and everything that regular authors would describe as this was red, this was ugly, this was like this, like that. This author, Marina, um, manages to convey all of that with the other senses. So if she wants to say that something is ugly, she might use the smell, the taste, the touch, but she cannot use the sight. So to me, it was really interesting. I'm sure there are a lot of books out there that do this as well, but this was my first time reading a book like this. And again, that combined with the creepy vibes that I don't want to discuss because I don't want to spoil anything, made for such a delightful read. And again, so short because it's like, again, it's really, really, really short. So in less than one day, you can read this, have a satisfying read, and at the same time, a short one. So everything is perfect. So I am not sure if this book is translated into English. When I bought this book, it was around 2020, I believe, and the author was a very small independent author here in Spain, so I don't know if she has published other works that have been translated into English. Maybe, I'm not sure, but yeah, if you are able to find this in English, or if you know Spanish, or if you want to learn Spanish and you have some understanding of the language, I would recommend this because it's a beautifully written book, but it doesn't use a difficult language. I think if you have a low to medium understanding of Spanish, you could definitely make your way through this book, maybe looking up some words on Google. The next book that I want to talk about is Opúsculos y qué by Manuel Vargas Molto. This is the cover. It's a very old book. It's in Spanish, and I'm pretty sure this book has no translation to the English language because I cannot for the life of me find information about this book. That is the weird thing about this book. Well, the book on its own is weird, but the fact that in the age of information and content and internet, I cannot find anything about this book. If you search for this book on Goodreads, I was the one who created the page because it didn't show up. I have not seen the author. I've tried searching for the author. I've tried searching for a lot of things that are mentioned in the book, and I cannot find a single thing. If I had not read this, and if I wasn't standing here in front of the camera with the book in my hand, I would assume I went crazy and I thought I read a book that I just made up in my mind because literally no information. And the book on itself is weird. This is a short story collection that I really, really enjoyed, but made no sense at all. Basically, we have short stories from thriller to some form of fantasy, I guess we could say. We follow animals, we follow human beings, we follow different scenarios. The stories are not connected to each other, they're just standalone short stories, but they were very fun to read. It was, as you can see, it's very short, so it was a really fun experience, but yeah, it made no sense. So that is why it's weird to me, because no sense at all and no information at all. I don't even know how this book made it in my bookshelf. Like, I have not bought this. My family are not readers, so I doubt they had this book. So yeah, it's just surrounded by mystery, I guess. Guys, if the image and the lighting is not great, I apologize, but today, apparently, autumn, fall decided to grace my city, and literally from one day to the other, the summer went away. So I have no natural lighting because the sky is cloudy, and yeah, so I apologize. The next book that I want to talk about is La Estrategia del Parásito by César Mallorquí. The translation, and I know this book was published in English under the title The Strategy of the Parasite. Hello, editing Ricardo here. I have to apologize because I was mistaken. I confused this book with a title from the same author, and this one has not been translated into English yet. So as an apology, here you have a video I took of my city, because I had to correct this. I'm sorry, I got mistaken. Thank you. This book, this book was a high school read. I had a teacher in high school who would recommend us books from time to time, not force us to read them. Just she was like, "Hey, I learned about this book and I think you guys could enjoy it. So, if you want, you can give it a try." And I remember my entire classroom read this book and we were commenting on it like every day at school. Like I was texting with my friends talking about this book because it was crazy. Uh, this book is about Oscar, I believe. I read it years ago, so if I don't get all the names correct, I apologize. But this book is about Oscar. Oscar is a regular guy that just graduated college, and he receives a package one day from his old high school classmate named Mario. In this package, Mario says that he is going to return for the content of the package, which is like an USB. But if he does not return, Oscar should know that he was killed. He was murdered. That's why he might not return. But days prior to receiving the package, Oscar learned that Mario had died in a car accident. So yeah, from there we go, and in this package, Mario gives Oscar instructions on how to access the information of that USB if he has to, but he begs him not to get involved. And the only instruction he gives Oscar is to use the USB in a computer that is not connected to the web or to anything, that a computer that basically has no connection at all. And from there the story evolves, and recently I discovered that this is the first book in a trilogy. When I read the book, the other two parts weren't out, and I'm pretty sure the other two books were an afterthought, because it had been like, this book was published in 2012 and the second part came in 2019. So, and the book on its own is pretty, it's like one of these standalones that doesn't have a defined ending, which this is I think the exception to the fact that I hate when books don't have a defined close end. But this book did it so well that I did not care. A fun fact is that me and a few of my friends, after finishing the book, we were unable to use our phone or our laptops for like a month because the book scared us. I would define this as a cyber thriller of sorts. So if you're interested in like the shady business of technology and the internet, I think you would like this book. If you're not a tech guy, don't worry, because I'm not either, and this book doesn't get into the technicisms or the lingo of the tech world. It's just a book about technology, but it doesn't, the weight is not on the technology, it's on the plot. So I think everybody should give this book a read, and I'm pretty sure some of you might like it. Up next is Pedro Páramo by Juan Rulfo. This book is a Mexican classic, and honestly, it feels a little bit weird to call a classic weird, but I just could not do this book without this video without including this book. One of my favorite classics, let me start there. But again, I did not understand anything until the end. This book is one of those where the author is giving you pieces of a puzzle and you try to connect them to each other, but there's one missing piece in which without you cannot figure out what's going on. And at the end of the book, the author gives you that final piece and everything falls into place perfectly, and it makes so much sense, and it leaves you with a feeling of emptiness, but in a good way. Like, it's not emptiness because you wasted your time reading the book. It's emptiness because of the life of the characters, of the world that the author was setting and everything. It was a heart-wrenching book. Heart-wrenching, yeah. A heart-wrenching book. In this story, we follow the son of Pedro Páramo, who grew up without his father present in his life for reasons that he or his mother didn't know. So when his mother passes away, he's finally free of the burden, I guess we could say, of having to care for a sick elderly person, and he's able to travel to find his father, to look for Pedro Páramo. And during his travel, he's going to find a lot of people that in some way, shape, or form have been related or have had encounters with Pedro Páramo. And the legend of Pedro Páramo is only going to grow and grow before his son's eyes, and his son is going to have to deal with the fact that it seems that everybody knew his father, but he did not. So I think this book, it's just amazing. I really, really liked it. And if you like Latin American literature, this book is for you. Like, I cannot say enough good words about this book. I was reading this piece, and between the lines, I was getting traces of Gabriel García Márquez, author of 100 Years of Solitude, Mario Vargas Llosa, Peruvian author, Julio Cortázar, who had great short stories. It had the feel of a Latin American classic. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, Latin American authors and Spanish authors make the best classics. So I think you guys should definitely give this one a try. Definitely. Because at the same time, even though it has that air of the Latin vibe and the Latin culture of literature, the author, even though it's a Mexican author and a Mexican classic, doesn't necessarily give us the Mexico that we usually are used to, or given by movies and other literature. To me, it was perfect. It was beautiful. It was sad. It left me with a feeling of emptiness that I had to recover from. I really, really recommend this book. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about was originally published in French, but I know it has been translated into a lot of different languages, and I'm talking about The Sexual Life of Catherine Millet, by Catherine Millet. Catherine Millet was, or is, I don't know if she's dead or alive, forgive me, but she was some sort of journalist of artists. She interviewed artists, she reviewed their work, and she basically was a well-known person in France, sorry. And apparently she also loved sex, and that's what she talks about in the book. At first, I was like, ooh, a book about sex, blah blah blah. Not my thing. I don't particularly enjoy books that have a high sexual content. That's why I rarely read romantasy or current fantasy. I don't read romance, let alone spicy books. It makes me so uncomfortable knowing the author's sexual fantasies. I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to know that. My taste, of course, if you like to get hot and bothered, that's up to you. But yeah, in this book we follow the life of Catherine Millet in relation to sex. And to me, actually, this book was really interesting. This book surprised me in a good way, because I thought, oh, we're going to read a bunch of sex, and I was not interested in that. But the book that I have, which is, it's give me a second, is this one. I have to cover her breasts, but it's like a white and like a pink, and like the cover of, I assume, is her naked, was really interesting to me. Like, it drew my attention, and I decided to give it a try. And again, I was surprised. I was happily surprised, because yeah, it has a lot of sexual scenes, but they're not described to the fullest. Like, this author, if she wanted to, she could have gone way more explicit. There was some scenes that were, descriptive and explicit, but I think she kept a tone of, which is something that I actually appreciate, not giving that much importance to sex. And you might think, well, she wrote a whole book, and it's true, but she keeps explaining how, to her, sex is fun, and that's it. For her, to her, sex is just a fun thing to do, an enjoyable thing to do, and it doesn't necessarily have to involve feelings. It doesn't necessarily have to mean anything between the two people. It doesn't have to mean anything to her. It's just, yeah, sexual exchange between two consenting adults. During certain parts of the book, you feel bad for her, because there are certain things that happen that are not negative, but are like, I don't know how I would feel about it. But she keeps reassuring the reader that, hey, it's sex. I gave my consent. I loved it. I enjoyed it. And this is my life, and I want to talk about it. It's never from a negative perspective. So basically, if you want to read about a French lady talking about her sexual life, I recommend this book. But I think there are a few things that we can take from this book, definitely. I would recommend this book if you are like Catherine Millet, who thinks that sex is just fun and is not necessarily associated with love, or sometimes even physical attraction. It's just is inherently a desire that the human body has. I would also recommend the book if you hate sex, because you're going to see the other side of the coin. And I think books that do that are wonderful. There were definitely parts of the book that I was like, okay, let's keep it moving. This book is too long to be a sex book. But for the most part, I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend this book to people who are interested and to people who are, of legal age. This book is perfect for adults who want to read about sex, not from an erotic point of view. Like if you're trying to, have a little fun reading this book, definitely not. It's not erotic, it's not sexual or sensual. It's just about, the act of sex. And since we are talking about sex, let's go to our next book is The Sluts by Dennis Cooper. This book wrecked my mind. Like this book, oof. This book was so interesting. In this book we don't follow a character even, we follow a website. This book is set in the early stages of the internet, and there is a website, the one that we follow, that is based on basically rating and reviewing male escorts, how well they are at their job, the things that made the experience less pleasant to the clients and all of that. And one day this client gives a review to Brad, or about Brad, this guy who he found on the streets, and they engage in the act of sex, and he put out a review. And from that, Brad starts to become a legend in this website, and everybody is trying to tell their experience with Brad and have an experience with Brad. And to me, the most interesting thing about this book is how real it felt in regards of the internet, because I think this book is basically trying to say we don't know what's true and what's not. And I think it's something so relevant today for a book published in the early 2000s, like not even in the 2010s, in the 2000s. I think it's so relevant because we really don't know what's true, especially, and it's crazy that nowadays when we have access to everything on the internet, that we can, we wouldn't even need physical books anymore if we didn't want, to read physical copies. There are a lot of things that we don't need because we have the internet, and then we have things like AI and misinformation online that is so up to date and is so believable that is crazy. And I loved this book because it felt relevant. This is not the whole thing of the book. In my opinion, it's the most important thing of the book. But if you want to read this book, I highly recommend you check the trigger warning list, because there are a lot of scenes where it was rough. There were in particular 2 scenes where I just debated in between skipping them or reading them. If you've read the book, you probably know which scenes they were. I'm not going to say what the book, like those trigger warnings, because some people might consider that spoilers. But if you are worried about possible triggering things, please definitely check the list, because at some points it gets rough. And the craziest thing about all is that at the end we still don't know what to believe. So I just loved this book. I really loved this book, and I want to read more from Dennis Cooper. And here comes the last book of the video. This is From the Cradle to the Grave, from the Cradle to the Grave, a short story collection distributed and published by Oxford. Here basically we have a short story collection, a compilation of short stories that basically talk about the evolution of life. We basically have different stories tell that talk about you know, childhood, teenagehood, adulthood, elderly people, and to me they were just wonderful. There are definitely a couple of stories that I would have skipped. If I did that, I particularly don't like to skip over parts of the book, but I think in a short story collection it doesn't really matter because these stories were independent. They had nothing to do with each other apart from the the fact that we start in childhood and we end in the last stages of life. My favorite story was Mr. Bixby's Little Outing. No, Mr. Loveday's Little Outing. Yeah, Mr. Loveday's Little Outing. There's another story about Mr. Bixby and her coat or something, or his coat or something like that. But Mr. Loveday's Little Outing impacted me. That I probably think that's the only that story is the reason why this book is in this video, because it was crazy. And since this book, I have read a lot of books that talk about that the evolution of life in a human being, especially short story collections or poems. I think they are really fun to read when they are talking about, the different stages of life and the different challenges that these stages present. So yeah. And with that, we reach the end of the video. Again, apologies for everything. Apparently Live doesn't want me to record this video. Because it was first my English, then the microphone, then the lighting is horrible. It's horrible. I don't know if I will publish this because it's really pissing me off. But yeah, if I publish this and you like it, please let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books. If you have any recommendations for me, and I hope I see you on the next one. Bye!